Each week on Culinary Confidential, Christina Cates, a seasoned foodie who has worked at some of New York City's top restaurants, will share her passion for the culinary world. Whether you're a professional chef, a restaurant enthusiast, or a lover of good food, Christina dives into the heart of hospitality, exploring the trends, triumphs, and challenges facing the food service profession. And you won't want to miss her chats with some of the most interesting and influential industry voices. And now, please take your seat at the table as Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates starts now, exclusively on AM 970, The Answer.
Welcome to Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates. This show is produced in association with my dear friend, Lucas A. Ferrara. As we continue to kick off a brand new year, there's a phrase that gets thrown around a lot. New year, new you. But tonight, we're taking a slightly different approach. Instead of focusing on restriction, rules, or cutting entire food groups out, we're talking about something much more realistic and much more sustainable. And that's New Year, New Pantry. Because the truth is, most of us don't fail our resolutions because we lack willpower. We fail because our pantry sets us up that way. The foods we keep on hand quietly shape how we eat every single day, especially when we're busy, tired, or just trying to get dinner on the table. And one of the most misunderstood and unfairly villainized pantry staples is the carbohydrate. Carbs have taken a beating over the last decade, but nutritionally speaking, carbohydrates are still the body's primary source of energy, especially for the brain. In fact, according to the Institute of Medicine, our brain alone requires about 130 grams of carbohydrates per day just to function properly. The issue isn't carbs, it's which carbs. Here's where things get interesting. Nearly 60% of calories in the American diet come from ultra-processed foods, many of them refined carbohydrates stripped of fiber, minerals, and nutrients. And the average American gets less than half of the recommended daily fiber intake, which is about 25 to 38 grams per day, depending on age and gender. Fiber is crucial. It helps regulate blood sugar, supports gut health, keeps us fuller longer, and even plays a role in heart health. So tonight's conversation is about upgrading the carb, not eliminating it. Choosing carbohydrates that are whole, intentional, nutrient-dense, and deeply connected to tradition, culture, and craftsmanship. In much of the world, carbohydrates aren't treated as a guilty pleasure. They're treated as the backbone of daily nourishment. Across Europe, Asia, Africa, Latin America, and the Caribbean, meals are built around a starch that's both practical and cultural. You have bread in France and Italy, rice in Japan and China, naan bread in India, tortillas in Mexico. What else? We have plantains and yams across West Africa and the Caribbean, potatoes throughout Northern Europe. These foods appear at every meal, not as an afterthought, but as a source of energy and continuity. The thing that carries sauces, proteins, and vegetables and makes a meal feel complete. Importantly, these cultures tend to eat carbohydrates in less processed forms, in balanced portions, and alongside fiber, fat, and protein, which stabilizes blood sugar and supports long-term health. The American relationship with carbs is shaped less by tradition and more by diet culture and industry. Beginning in the late 20th century, low-fat and later low-carb marketing framed bread, rice, and pasta as the enemy, despite rising consumption of ultra-processed foods and added sugars being the real drivers of metabolic disease. In the U.S., carbs were flattened into a single category, bad, without distinction between refined white sugar and whole grains, legumes, or root vegetables. Weight loss culture, moralized eating, good versus bad foods, and a fixation on thinness helped turn carbohydrates into something to fear or earn rather than something to enjoy. The irony is that many of the healthiest populations in the world eat carbohydrates daily and unapologetically. What they don't prioritize is restriction. They prioritize quality, balance, and ritual. In contrast, Americans often eat carbs in isolation, stripped of the fiber, rushed, and loaded with additives, then blame the carbohydrate itself rather than the system that distorted it. Reframing carbs as nourishment, not indulgence, isn't radical globally. It's the norm. That's why I'm so excited about tonight's guest. First up, Queen Street Bakery, a brand that has completely reimagined bread, one of the most basic pantry staples, by focusing on slow fermentation, whole ingredients, and lower glycemic carbohydrates. Their breads are designed to deliver the comfort and joy we associate with bread while supporting steadier energy and better blood sugar response. This is the kind of product that lets you keep toast, sandwiches, and real bread in your life without the crash. And then we're diving into something that may be new to many pantries, but has fed communities for generations. Breadfruit with Amazar. Breadfruit is a naturally gluten-free, fiber-rich, complex carbohydrate that's a staple food across the Caribbean, Pacific Islands, and parts of Africa. 1 cup of breadfruit contains more fiber than white rice or pasta, plus potassium, vitamin C, and antioxidants, all while being incredibly versatile. It can be roasted, mashed, baked, or turned into flour, making it a powerful pantry addition to the modern kitchen. What both of these guests have in common is a respect for carbohydrates as fuel, not filler. They're proof that better carbs can be delicious, functional, culturally meaningful, and accessible, not just another wellness trend. So tonight, we're asking a simple but important question. What if the easiest way to eat better this year isn't eating less, but choosing better? Whether you're rebuilding your pantry from scratch, looking to support energy levels, or just simply trying to feel good about what's on your plate, this episode is all about smarter swaps, better bread, and carbs that actually work for your body. Stick with us because this is one pantry refresh you'll want to hear. Okay, my first guest tonight is Alicia Lang. Welcome to the show, Alicia.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
This is going to be great. Okay, Alicia, as Queen Street Bakery's in-house nutrition expert and community manager, she brings her detailed knowledge of food and wellness to the brand. She's a registered dietitian with a master's in health science and is hyper-focused on eradicating issues in the food and grocery supply chain. With a gluten intolerance herself, she has poured her scientific understanding to the values and mission of Queen Street Bakery. She works with customers and the community to better every bread product and helps inform the bakers and recipe developers in truly creating breads with benefits. She strongly believes that everyone, regardless of allergies and intolerances, deserve delicious food that make them feel good. Alicia, breads with benefits is the perfect tagline, by the way. I think that's genius.
Isn't that great?
That's so cute.
It really encompasses everything.
Okay, let's talk about bread as a better carbohydrate, right? Because we know bread gets a bad reputation. What makes Queen Street different from conventional gluten-free bread?
Yeah, great question. So there's definitely a big misconception out there that, all bread is bad for you, really all carbs are bad for you, but that is absolutely not the truth. In reality, it's more about the quality of carbs that you're choosing. So our bodies really do actually need carbohydrates, but we want higher quality carbs. This means that carbs that are higher in fiber, more nutrient dense ingredients that really do more for you. So like looking at the ingredients in your breads is what is really the most important part.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I am someone who I would say had a bad relationship with carbs. I always thought they were like the devil. Like I would try to omit them as much as possible. I did keto for a while. But the more I read about carbs and even preparing for the show, I was like, wow, I have it all wrong. Especially globally, the carbohydrate is such a significant part of someone's diet. It really made me look at our food system and say, we just have it all wrong here. But when I read the ingredients on the label of some of the bread products, even in your local grocery store, right? Like if you're at a ShopRite or Stop and Shop and you go to the bakery section and you are getting the bakery bread, it's nothing but chemicals in there.
Yeah, definitely. Our food system is really just about like trying to produce as much as possible, not necessarily about trying to improve the nutrition of the foods that we have.
Right.
I would say I think that that's like changing, and that's something that's very important to us at Queen Street Bakery is picking those really high quality ingredients, because you're so right. You're in the grocery store and you're looking around at all the different breads available in the bread aisle. There's way more like unnecessary ingredients, right? Like our sugars or preservatives in those foods that, bread's been around for thousands and thousands of years and we haven't really needed it up to that point, right? So
like bread is literally
definitely,
life.
Yeah, definitely. It gets kind of a bad rep, but it doesn't need to be that way. That's for sure.
Okay, let's talk about the slow fermentation or even the sourdough process that Queen Street Bakery is known for.
Yeah, definitely. So as you're mentioning about our sourdough, it's actually a new product that we've just launched in Sprouts and online. And what makes it really kind of special is that we use a real sourdough starter with a slow fermentation process. So I don't know if you know this, but if you look at a lot of different sourdough breads in the grocery store, or especially the gluten-free versions of these sourdoughs, a lot of them are mostly made from like starches and rice flour, and sometimes there's hardly even any sourdough in there at all. Which, sometimes they're just using sourdough starter as like a touch of flavor instead of really getting the benefits, which is kind of a shame because there are so many great benefits to like a true sourdough. Like the natural fermentation process helps to break down carbs and fibers. And this is really great. It does two really great things. It essentially makes the bread easier to digest and also helps to lower the glycemic index. Not sure if you've heard that before, but the glycemic index is basically how much it spikes your blood sugar. So the fermentation process in sourdough helps to not have such a big jump in that glycemic index. So that's really great too, because that's what makes you feel like really tired after you eat a piece of bread, that sugar crash, right? So sourdough doesn't have that same kind of effect. It's a much slower digestion process.
Well, you know what it is also? It's not so much the crash for me per se. If I start my day with even something like oatmeal, right? A carb heavy breakfast, and I'm not talking about sourdough, like a regular toast, I find that I just get hungry sooner.
Totally, for sure. There's a few reasons for that. Oftentimes your standard white bread, it doesn't have a whole lot of fiber in it as well. And fiber helps to slow down that digestion and keeps you feeling fuller for longer. So that's something that's super important to us here. Like a lot of people are not getting even close to enough fiber in their diet. And our breads are all really high in fiber, which helps with that, what you're talking about. Like you don't want to be showing up to work and eating your lunch as soon as you log in, right? You need your breakfast to last you a little bit longer, and fiber can definitely help with that too.
I'm just so glad you talked about the sourdough, the general sourdough that's on the shelves in the supermarket, though, because, and I'm not Queen Street Bakery, because I have the same fight with my mother all the time. Because my father can't have a lot of carbs, and she's always saying, no, look, I'm buying him sourdough. And I'm like, it's not real sourdough. You're not giving him real sourdough. But she listens every week, so I know she's listening to this, so this is great. So, Lori, I'm right. I'm always right.
Amazing.
Okay. So let's talk gluten-free, because your whole line is gluten-free.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, many listeners aren't gluten-free. Why should they still care about how their bread is made?
Yeah, honestly, we're a gluten-free bread company, but you'd be surprised to know that really a lot of our customers aren't gluten-free either, which is kind of interesting because, gluten-free bread gets a bad rap as well. For not tasting good, or sometimes people even think it just means that it's like healthy and therefore it can't taste good. But it's really interesting because actually a lot of gluten-free breads are in some ways less healthy than the standard like your standard wheat bread. There's often a lot of like starches and sugars in there to kind of make up for that taste. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a testament that a lot of our customers aren't even gluten-free because they really are just caring about the ingredients in their food and the nutrition that those ingredients can give them. And we really take a lot of care on choosing the ingredients that go into our bread. It's definitely one of our core values because we really do believe that truly healthy breads can add a lot of beneficial nutrition to your life. And, being gluten-free and allergen-free is also really important to us because we want everyone to be able to enjoy our bread with benefits, as you called out earlier.
Bread with benefits. I mean, that was genius. Listen, how did you discover you had the gluten allergy? Was it just from eating bread and just not digesting it well?
Yeah, I always laugh that I thought I was fine for most of my life. And then when I was 16, I went to see a dietitian who I was describing all of these like digestion issues I was having and the bloating and everything. And she suggested that, it sounds like you might have a gluten intolerance. So I went gluten-free, and within like a week, it was so clear to me that that was what the problem was for me. And it was definitely interesting because then I'm buying my own gluten-free bread as like a teenager or a young adult, and all of the options that are available out there, kind of it's like it either tastes good or it's good for you. There wasn't really many that did really any that did both until I discovered Queen Street Bakery, and it's great because I'm, our target customer. I care about the nutrition and the ingredients in my products, but obviously it has to taste good too. So definitely found the right thing.
You talk about the importance of quality ingredients in Queen Street Bakery's products. What are some of these ingredients?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we use a variety of different seed and bean and gluten-free whole grain flours like chia seed, flaxseed. We use a white bean flour as well, and sorghum and millet flours. Those are kind of like our main ingredients. And they all really serve like a nutritional purpose, but they also really add to like the taste and texture. I think a lot of people worry that there's going to be like a beany aftertaste, but we use like a white kidney bean flour that's really
Pretty
mild and
yeah.
adds a lot of softness to the product, but also is beans and seeds. These are things you should be eating more of. Like if you went to your doctor or your dietitian, they'd recommend adding more of that into your diet. So
Absolutely.
we thought, why not make a bread out of those as well?
Because we all started as hunters and gatherers, right? Like that kind of diet mindset where it was like, if it doesn't grow on the earth, like you shouldn't be eating it. And that's kind of where your brand, the direction is going in. It's all made from whole, real ingredients. And we need more of that. We need to normalize eating real food in this country, honestly.
Totally. I couldn't agree more.
What are some of the different products that you're offering, though? Do you have like bagels, loaves of bread? Tell me everything.
Yeah, we have all kinds of different things. So we have bagels are some of our, I would say most popular, but I think they all everybody has their favorite. So we have a chia and flaxseed bagel that's really more of like a neutral kind of taste. It has a really lovely like seeded top. We have cinnamon raisin if you're a big fan of that. And we also have an everything bagel, which is just classic, right? So imagine like getting to eat all of those delicious things, but adding to the nutrition of your diet as well. We also have some different breads. And as I mentioned earlier, our sourdough is the newest one that we've just launched. And we have English muffins. We've got burger buns as well. We've got all kinds of different.
You really thought of everything. What about like a tortilla? Can we get that on the lineup?
That's something we've been working on and thinking about, but nothing yet. We got to perfect it first.
I like that. Okay. What ingredients should people look for and avoid when stocking pantry staples like bread? Like, what are some things you see on a bread label, per se, that you're like, you shouldn't buy that, that's toxic, don't get it?
Right. Yeah. Good question. I would say things like, to start out positively, the things that we should be looking for is really the first ingredients in our bread, or on any ingredients label, actually, the ingredients that are closer to the beginning of that list are the ones that make up the majority of the product. And as you get further down the list, it's smaller and smaller portions, right? So the first ingredients of your bread being ingredients that really give you more fiber, more nutrients, more satisfaction. So like whole grains, right? Like sorghum or seeds like chia, things like that. Or if you do eat wheat bread, like a whole grain wheat versus like like a bleached wheat flour that doesn't really give you a whole lot of much, or like lower nutrition flours. And a lot of gluten-free options, you'll see a lot of like the first ingredient after water is rice flour or different starches, right? Or sometimes there's a lot of added sugars as well. So those are the things that I would kind of avoid, and leaning more towards those ingredients that are going to give you more like those whole grains, seeds, beans, things like that.
So as a nutritionist, what is your perfect breakfast setup to start your day?
Good question. I recently have really been loving our sourdough bread. Like, it's such a good base to that breakfast because I know I'm already going to be getting a whole bunch of nutrition from that. And I like to pair my toast with a source of protein, right? So I really like to have 2 eggs and then some healthy fats too from avocado, which I don't know if you know this, but avocado also has quite a bit of fiber in it as well too. So those 3 things, like, your basic avocado toast, but with an egg on top, it totally keeps me full until lunch because it's just absolutely packed with fiber and nutrition.
That's a powerhouse breakfast. Okay.
Totally.
Let's do this, Alicia. Let's head to our first commercial break. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. You're listening to Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates on AM 970 The Answer.
Over the last 30 years, Newman Ferrara, a New York City law firm, has evolved into a national practice focused on real estate, commercial, litigation, civil rights, class actions, and other complex litigation, representing many of the city's largest property owners, managing agents, and thousands of tenants. Newman Ferrara handles some of the nation's most significant class actions and civil rights matters. Newman Ferrara at 1250 Broadway in New York City. Go online to newmanferrara.com. That's newmanferrara.com. Listen to the firm's name partner, Lucas Ferrara, every Saturday at 10 a.m. on Dottie Herman's longest-running real estate radio program, Eye on Real Estate on AM 970. A real estate lawyer for 35 years, Lucas is a professor at New York Law School and is also a published author with books on real estate and New York's landlord-tenant law. Tune in Saturdays at 10 a.m. to hear Lucas's unique perspective and advice on Eye on Real Estate.
Welcome back to Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates on AM 970 The Answer.
Welcome back to Culinary Confidential. If you're just joining us, tonight's theme is New Year, New Pantry, and rethinking the way we approach carbohydrates. I'm excited to bring back Alicia Lang of Queen Street Bakery, a brand that's redefining bread by focusing on quality grains, fermentation, and transparency. We're talking about why bread doesn't have to be feared and how thoughtful baking fits into a healthier pantry and what it really means to choose a better carb instead of cutting carbs out altogether. Alicia, welcome back to the show.
Glad to be here.
Okay, I do want to touch a little bit more on the gluten side and the gut health and the intolerances because it is something that comes up on the show a lot. And I know you have the gluten intolerance and you are our nutrition expert. So I just want to run down something here. Okay, the idea that the U.S. has more in gluten intolerance than any other country is only partly real and partly a reflection of how we grow food, eat, diagnose, and talk about health. First, true gluten intolerance is actually rare everywhere. Celiac disease, the autoimmune condition triggered by gluten, affects about 1% of the global population, and rates in the U.S. are similar to Europe. What is higher in the U.S. is self-reported gluten sensitivities, where people feel better avoiding gluten even without a celiac diagnosis. So, can you talk a little bit, Alicia, about the wheat, the way we raise or grow the wheat in the U.S. versus some of the other countries? Because you did start to touch on it earlier. Like, why is our wheat so bad for us?
Right, yes. I think the way that we raise our wheat is just like a little bit different in the types of sprays or pesticides that are used. But I did also want to say that I think it's interesting because you're so right about like the rate of celiac disease across the world is actually like it's not nobody, but it's fairly low. I believe you said it's about 1%, right?
Yeah.
And then the non-celiac gluten sensitivity is definitely like a little bit more common. And I think that at the end of the day, we really just want people to be eating in a way that feels good to them, right? So there's also kind of getting diagnosed with celiac can sometimes be difficult, right? So I'll just touch on my own experience with this, I guess, that I had been tested for celiac disease when I was younger, like 8 years old or so, and I tested negative for it, right? And then years go by, I'm still having these same issues. And I went on a gluten-free diet as recommended to me by a dietitian I was seeing at the time and immediately noticed like a huge impact for me. Felt way better right away. But what that did mean was that now I cannot get tested for celiac disease because you actually have to be eating wheat and gluten as a part of your regular diet in order to get that test done. So I do think that there's like like definitely a group of people out there as well who maybe have that sensitivity and maybe they do have celiac disease, but there's kind of no way to know anymore, right?
I mean, I think I have for sure an intolerance. When I omit carbohydrates, like refined carbohydrates from my diet, I see a massive shift. The problem is they're just so easy to grab when you're busy on the go. Like even if you're on a road trip somewhere, you know, and you want to bring something, it's always something with a refined carb in it. You're not sitting there eating, you know, a blackened salmon over a salad.
Yeah,
it's
totally.
very
You're not bringing
difficult.
just like a grilled chicken breast on the road with you, right?
Yeah, but even like a chicken cutlet. I hear all the time on social media now.
Yeah.
It's like the original protein bars, the chicken cutlet. I'm like, okay, and it's covered in breadcrumbs. Like,
right. Yeah.
But it's
No,
it's
totally.
the
And I
American
think what you
wheat.
touched on there is it's a really good point that our carbs are really easy to grab when we're rushed. Like we're all busy, right? You don't always have time to sit there and really think about what a balanced meal could look like. So I think having just a few things on hand, you know, we're talking about the pantry today, right? So upgrading some of those staples in your pantry, choosing to have breads on hand, for example, that are just like a more nutritious version of a food that you love and is easy to grab. Like what a way to boost your nutrition instantly if the bread you're grabbing is something that you feel good about and is already a nutrient boost that you can just toast just as easily as you would a piece of bread that, as you mentioned earlier, right? You have a piece of toast and then you're hungry like 30 minutes later.
Yeah. I need more. Now, let me ask you, because I've gotten things like Ezekiel breads in the past, and I know because they don't have a lot of preservatives in them that they turn a little bit faster and they have to be kept in the refrigerator or freezer. Does Queen Street Bakery's products have to be stored at a certain temperature?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. It's interesting. I get this question a lot when I'm talking to customers that people, you know, they've heard that we're in Sprouts, for example, or we're in Whole Foods, but they don't know where to find us in the store. And that's because in Whole Foods, for example, we're in the frozen section.
Yeah.
And the reason being is what you mentioned, we don't have any preservatives. Because I don't know if you know, but in the grocery store, in your regular bakery section, those breads are not coming to you freshly baked, right? They often have to have like a much longer shelf life as it is. In order to be sold just like kind of quote unquote fresh at room temperature. Whereas because we don't use preservatives in our products, we use the freezer. It's just a natural preservative, right? Our products, we recommend to keep them in the freezer, but you can keep them on the counter for a week or two at a time. But it's interesting how it kind of also, frozen foods get a little bit of a bad rap as well. But
yeah.
Things like keeping your bread in the freezer, it's a natural preservative, right?
I love that. Okay, so where else can we find Queen Street Bakery products? We talked about Whole Foods. Where else? Sprouts.
Yeah, we're in Sprouts now as well. Sprouts is where you can find the sourdough I've been talking a lot about today. There, we're in the refrigerated bread section. And then you can also find us on our website, queenstreetbakery.com. We can deliver cases of bread right to your door, so you don't even have to go to the store.
Oh, I like that. Well, Alicia Lang, I thank you so much for your time tonight. I can't wait to dive into some Queen Street Bakery products for part of my New Year, New Pantry journey.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, before we head to the commercial break, I do want to discuss the way wheat is processed in the U.S. and why it's different than in other countries and why it's harder to digest here. American wheat is often highly refined, stripped of fiber and nutrients, and turned into fast digesting flour used in ultra-processed foods. In contrast, many countries consume stone-milled or less refined flours, fermented breads like sourdough, which partially break down the gluten. And they also eat smaller portions eaten with fat, fiber, and protein. It's often not the gluten itself. It's the processing and speed of digestion that causes the bloating, the inflammation, and discomfort. There's also the additives and the ultra-processed foods that we consume. The U.S. packaged foods frequently contain dough conditioners, emulsifiers, and preservatives, basically things that aren't food in the food. These ingredients can irritate the gut lining and disrupt the microbiome, creating symptoms people then attribute to gluten. In countries where bread has fewer ingredients, people often tolerate it just fine. And then there's gut health and lifestyle factors. Americans experience higher rates of chronic stress and, antibiotic abuse, and we have low fiber intake. All of these weaken the gut barrier and microbiome, making people more sensitive to foods, including gluten. A compromised gut is far more likely to react. And then, of course, there's awareness, diagnosis, and diet culture. The U.S. has greater access to testing and self-diagnosis, and a wellness industry that heavily markets gluten-free eating, a culture that moralizes food and equates restriction with health. This has increased awareness, but also over-attribution. When people cut out gluten and feel better, it's often because they've eliminated processed foods, not gluten specifically. And let's not forget about the portion size and eating patterns. In many countries, bread or pasta is a component of a meal, and it's eaten slowly and socially. In the U.S., gluten often shows up as large portions, eaten very quickly and paired with sugar and low fiber. That combination stresses digestion and blood sugar, amplifying symptoms. And here's the takeaway. The U.S. doesn't necessarily have more gluten intolerance. It has more gut stress, processed wheat, and more food fear. Many people who struggle with gluten in America can tolerate traditional breads abroad because the issue isn't the carbohydrate, it's the system around it. That's it. Let's go to our last commercial break. Stay tuned. You're listening to Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates on AM 970 The Answer.
Over the last 30 years, Newman Ferrara, a New York City law firm, has evolved into a national practice focused on real estate, commercial, litigation, civil rights, class actions, and other complex litigation, representing many of the city's largest property owners, managing agents, and thousands of tenants. Newman Ferrara handles some of the nation's most significant class actions and civil rights matters. Newman Ferrara at 1250 Broadway in New York City. Go online to newmanferrara.com. That's newmanferrara.com. Listen to the firm's name partner, Lucas Ferrara, every Saturday at 10 a.m. on Dottie Herman's longest-running real estate radio program, Eye on Real Estate on AM 970. A real estate lawyer for 35 years, Lucas is a professor at New York Law School and is also a published author with books on real estate and New York's landlord-tenant law. Tune in Saturdays at 10 a.m. to hear Lucas's unique perspective and advice on Eye on Real Estate.
Welcome back to Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates on AM 970, The Answer.
Welcome back to the show. We're continuing our new year, new pantry conversation, and now I'm joined by Marisol Villalobos of Amisar, a company introducing many Americans to breadfruit, a globally loved staple that's naturally gluten-free, nutrient-dense, and deeply rooted in food culture. We'll talk about why so many cultures center their meals around whole carbohydrates, how breadfruit fits into a modern pantry, and what it looks like to expand our idea of carbs beyond wheat and processed grains. Marisol, welcome to the show.
Christina, thank you so much for the invitation and for allowing Amisar to present what we have with breadfruit to all your audience and to New Yorkers. We're very excited.
Oh, this is going to be great because personally, I had never heard of breadfruit before our introduction, so this was special for me to learn more about this in preparation for the interview. Can we start by talking about the name Amisar? Right, you have this beautiful name for your company. Where did that come from?
Well, we're from Puerto Rico, so we're part of the U.S. We're domestic, but you know that we speak Spanish in the island. So amasar is a Spanish word, and it means to knead, when you're kneading the dough. And I love the name because it's a verb and it requires action, transformation of things from one thing to a great, pasta or baking or whatever you're doing. But then the root of amasar is love. And we enjoyed, so much when the name occurred to us, because I said immediately, love for nutrition, love for good food, love for agriculture, for healthy families. So we just love our name. Oh,
it's so special. I love it too. All right. So breadfruit is in the family of jackfruit. Is that correct?
It's correct. So it shares that great nutritional value that jackfruit has. But then on the other side, it's more mild at taste. It's an entire pulp of the fruit, so it's like more easy to work with and to make the flour in our case.
And what is the flavor profile of breadfruit?
Well, it's basically like a sweet potato, if you may.
Oh, okay.
It has more taste than a regular potato, but then it can get a little sweeter, not that sweet as a sweet potato. It grows on trees. So some people say it's actually like the potato that grows on trees, being a little bit more sustainable in that case. But it's a milder taste, but it's very good.
Okay, so we want to introduce MSR and the breadfruit flours into a modern pantry, right? Because we're trying to make better choices this year. So tell us about your line of products.
Well, thank you. And I enjoyed so much the title of this program, New Year, New Pantry, because definitely Amasad can stand out as a great option for having in your pantry as an alternative flour, because it just behaves so well in the kitchen. You can do the best pancakes, waffles, brownies, any type of baking like a carrot cake, but then you don't have the gluten. It's all naturally gluten-free. And on the other side, it's packed with fiber and with other nutritious ingredients.
Yeah. We talk a lot about fiber on the show, especially this episode. I was talking about it a lot earlier. Fiber is so important for the diet. And a lot of the carbohydrates that we eat in the U.S. proper, they're stripped of the nutrients.
Exactly. So Amasad specializes, Christina, in offering a line of flours that's very natural. It contains the entire fruit. We don't take any of that fiber out. So it's super high in fiber, actually. And you know that nowadays with all these diets, diabetes and the GLP-1 people and population that are working with that, it's a great alternative to have in the pantry. But then it just tastes delicious. That's a great thing about it, even though it's gluten-free.
Okay, so I cook a lot with our alternative flours, right? Because I know the AP flour, all-purpose flour, the white flour, bleach, terrible for you. So I do, especially for my kids, try to use other things. I'll use, oat flours, coconut flours. The ratio sometimes isn't the same when you're substituting in baked goods or pancakes or whatever. How does it work with breadfruit? Is it like a 1-to-1 breadfruit flour ratio to regular flour?
Well, actually, thanks for that question, because it's less. You use less of our flour.
Oh.
We do blends, Christina. So our flours are the main ingredient is breadfruit. So that's our proprietary formulation. But we add a little bit of other types of flours to soften and to make it more easy to use in the kitchen. Because as a mother of 3, as a working mom, for me, it's very important to have something that's very easy to work with. So in the case of our flours and blends, you use 3/4 of a cup instead of an entire cup for a regular recipe you have.
Oh, good. So you're even saving money. You're using less products.
Yes.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
Okay, outside of the obvious nutritional benefits of incorporating breadfruit flour into your modern pantry, I think what's really cool about this is it's sustainable and the climate impact. You want to talk more about that?
Yes, well, breadfruit grows on trees, so it's a perennial tree. So we plant a breadfruit tree in the Caribbean, and it can be productive for over 80 years,
Wow.
Christina. You heard well. 80 years. So a breadfruit tree can sustain a family of 4. And it was like an overseen fruit here in the Caribbean. Amasad, I think, has done an amazing job bringing out the word about breadfruit, presenting breadfruit in this new form in a flour that's so convenient to use, tastes so good. And then it's sustainable because it grows on trees. We're located in the Caribbean, so we have so much fresh water. We don't have to water it artificially. So it has so many benefits to it.
What I love about this also is the cultural roots, right? Like
Yes,
you grew up
yes.
eating this. Did you grow up with a breadfruit tree in your backyard?
We have like 4 or 5 in my dad's and mom's farm. But Puerto Ricans have been enjoying breadfruit for over 200 years in the Caribbean. And our brothers and sisters in the Pacific, which we owe breadfruit from, because that's where it came, the story is marvelous, have been enjoying it for over thousands of years already. So it was an overseen fruit because it ripens very quickly. That's how we decided Amasad was very innovative, because we decided to do the flowers, and now you have have a food that has a 36 shelf life.
That's so
36
cool.
months of shelf life. Yeah.
All right, so we're using Amazar breadfruit flour for easy swaps at home, right? We can use it as regular flour in pancakes. We can make breads with it, tortillas, dumplings. Is there anything else I'm missing?
I do the best breaded chicken. I do the best gluten-free, hear me well, chicken and waffles. It's all gluten-free because I do the waffles with Amazar's breadfruit flour blend, and I also bread the chicken with the all-purpose flour, and I don't have to put anything in it, Christina. I don't have to put any eggs or milk. You just season your chicken as you wish, and you just put in the flour and you deep fry, and it's amazing. We also do great brownies with local cocoa, and we also do a great banana nut cake, a great carrot cake, apple cakes. We have plenty of recipes on our site that you can just check out, amasar.net. But yeah, we've been playing around with the flour a lot.
I love it. All right, what do you believe every pantry should have going into the new year if we're doing a pantry reset mindset?
Well, definitely we have to higher fiber content in our pantry. Fiber just is so beneficial. And you know, I get surprised when I see how we had been removing fiber from everything.
Yeah.
And now we're understanding how important it is for our gut, how important it is to lower sugar spikes in our bloodstream, and in so many things, you know, wellness in general. So all the different in foods that we can find that have a lot of fiber and we can maintain it in there, it's best. Also, we have to look for the good oils, you know, the good fatty oils that are natural.
Hassie avocado oil.
Avocado oil, yes. I love to use avocado oil and coconut oil as well.
Yes.
So those ingredients, I think, that are coming back, right, from what you were mentioning, all this cultural innovation that's coming back. All these things that were overseen, and now we're seeing how great they are for our health in general. I think going more to natural, finding things that are manufactured with less ingredients, with more natural ingredients, with less preservatives in them.
Absolutely.
I think it's very important to fill our pantry with that.
Well, I think it's more also about like just intentional eating. And you see it even more with drinking, the intentional mindset about mindful drinking. People that are getting more into the mocktail movement, people care about what's going into their body now. And they're not going to be so easily convinced by some of these big marketing corporations that tell you Doritos is, you know, what you should eat. People are educated now. The internet is, you know, it's the best tool you can have. You can look up ingredient lists for any products in a supermarket. It's the first thing I do. If I'm even doing some kind of online shopping for groceries, if I can't make it to the store and I'm buying something, the first thing I do is I flip the picture and I look at the ingredient list because I want to make sure I'm cooking with ingredients that are whole and nutritious. And Amazar reflects that.
Yeah, definitely. And Amazar, we love these clients, you know, these people we serve that flip the bag and they want to see that nutritional table and the list of ingredients. And they ask me, why do you say it's wholemeal breadfruit flour? And I explain to them, because this is not a grain, Christina, it's a fruit. So I can't use the word whole grain because it's not a grain, it's a fruit. So it's so interesting. Another day I was speaking with this teacher. She's a mom of 3 kids. And she was telling me, you know what? I love the concept that I'm serving with Amazar, basically a fruit pancake. And I hadn't seen it that way. So I know that my children are getting more fruit in there and packed with all the fiber because you're not removing the fiber from there. So I just love when they flip the bag and want to ask me questions and they say, what is breadfruit? And I pop up the picture and they see what's breadfruit and that it's locally grown and then it's so clean. That's another thing about it, Christina. All of our crops are just grown so clean that we do not use any pesticides, any chemicals on the farm. It doesn't need any of that. It's just amazing.
First of all, I love the way you say my name. Okay. You can say that all night long. That's lovely. What's next for Amazar? Do you have any new products, new uses, or just broader awareness of your product?
Well, definitely. Thank you again. We want more people to know about amasar and all the breadfruit flours we have to offer. We're working on putting more recipes on our website, amasar.net. We're working to launch a new brownie mix,
Oh,
a
that'll be
muffin
good.
mix, and also frozen options because we know that as being a mother of three and also an entrepreneur and having the farm and the factory and everything, I'm always on the run. So we do our meal preps. And then I know that at least for breakfast, I'm just having the great breakfast because we do pancakes and waffles, basically every day, and definitely those products are on our next steps, and just being able to introduce the product to more families, especially in the East Coast of the US. We're working a lot in Florida, in New York. There's so many people from Puerto Rico, so many Latinos that already know breadfruit but hadn't seen it in flours because we didn't regularly eat it in flours. That's where Amasar brought all the innovation, converting this amazing fruit and packing all that nutritionally dense pulp it has into a bag of flour.
I'm just thinking out loud here, Marisol. I had a chef by the name of Jason Neroni on the show just about 3 weeks ago. He's down in Puerto Rico now, opening this new big hotel and restaurant situation. I am going to connect the two of you because I know he would love to do something with a local purveyor of a local product and make it really high end because that's what he does. And I think that would be a really good relationship, the two of you, to develop.
Oh, thank you so much. That's super, super interesting. Yes, Christina, I would love to speak with Jason.
Okay, I'm going to do that after the show here. I'm going to connect the two of you. But Marisol, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. This was so wonderful. And you sent me all those products and I'm making pancakes tomorrow morning. I'm telling you.
Thank you. The recipe is just on the back of the bag. Very easy, very straightforward. And I'm sure you're going to give it your tweaks and they'll turn out perfect.
Perfect. Thank you so much and Happy New Year.
Yes, for everybody in the audience, for all the New Yorkers and for you and your family, thank you and Happy New Year as well.
Okay, that brings us to our ingredient of the week. And this week, it's fermented miso. Fermented miso is a traditional Japanese ingredient made by fermenting soybeans, sometimes with rice, sometimes with barley, with a culture called koji. It's packed with natural umami, giving dishes rich, savory depth without relying on heavy fats or salt. Beyond flavor, miso is full of probiotics and enzymes that support gut health, making it a smart addition to a wholesome pantry. It's incredibly versatile. You can stir it into soups, dressings, marinades, roasted vegetables, grains, and even sauces for pasta or proteins. Because it's fermented, it adds complexity to simple ingredients like the breads from Queen Street Bakery or the nutrient-rich breadfruit from Amasar, tying your new year, new pantry concept together with flavor, nutrition, and creativity. I use this all of the time in something as simple as a chicken soup that I make at home. I know fermented miso may sound intimidating, but it really just rounds out the flavors more and brings it all together nicely. I can't explain it, but you need to try it. I even have my mother buying it now, and this is the woman who thinks Velveeta is a type of cheese. So thank you for listening Sunday nights at 9 p.m. on AM 970 The Answer. That wraps up tonight's episode of Culinary Confidential. A big thank you to our guests for sharing their insight and inspiration around the idea of New Year, New Pantry, and showing us that choosing better carbohydrates isn't about restriction. It's about intention, quality, and nourishment. From thoughtful baking to reimagining global staples, tonight's conversation reminds us that carbs can be the foundation of a healthier, more satisfying way to eat. Thank you for listening and for being curious about what's in your pantry and why it matters. Here's to starting the year with better ingredients, better energy, and better choices. Join us next time for another conversation at the intersection of food, culture, and community. But that's the show for tonight. Thanks for listening and have a great night.
The preceding program is sponsored by Shake It Off Live, LLC.